Hi, everyone. My name is Mya Whyte. My committee is Dr. Weatherson, Dr. Lombard, and Dr. Accor, and today I will be presenting my MA project titled Into Deep, a short psychological surrealist horror film accompanied by my research paper where I examine how media representation shapes the emotional lives and identities of Black women, particularly through expectations of strength, composure, and emotional restraint. By combining Black feminist theory, media psychology, and film practice and research, I explore how these representations not only are constructed, but are experienced. So overall, Into Deep follows Amira, a young Black woman trapped inside a talk show-like nightmare inside her head, where she is forced to perform her identity under constant scrutiny. Alongside the film, my research examines how controlling images such as the strong Black woman and an angry Black woman become internalized and shape the emotional expression and self-perception of Black women. I argue that these representations are not only seen, but lived and felt, and that horror can make these internal pressures visual. Though I have many theories, I will focus mainly on the primary frameworks that I used. This project is grounded in Black feminist theory and media studies. Stuart Hall, I used him to explain how media constructs meaning and shapes identity. I used Patricia Hill Collins to introduce controlling images that were constructed by meaning. And these representations are regulating how Black women are perceived and how they can behave. Crim Kimberly Crenshaw, in her concept of intersectionality and her theories, to highlight how these pressures operate across gender and race, and especially Bill Hook's concept of oppositional gaze, which introduces resistance to these images and representation through critical spectatorship, where we look beyond what is presented in front of us and challenge them. So, for my for my central question, I ask, how do media representations shape perception of Black women and how horror visualizes their internal psychological impact? Well, through my project, the method I use is a practice-based methodology where filmmaking becomes a form of research. I shifted to a more sort of visual, immersive, emotional storytelling where I use psychological horror to externalize the internal conflict that Amira is feeling. She represents she represents the internalization through emotional restraint and self-regulation. Diana, the antagonist, represents the externalization of Amira, functioning as the embodiment of surveillance and pressure that Amira is going throughout the movie. The talk show setting reinforces this dynamic by turning all the internal emotions that Amira has into a public performance for everyone to see. Uh, Drawing from Freud's uncanny and dream theory, I use that to sort of create the concept of familiar spaces becoming unsettling and allowing the repressed fears and emotions to take visual form inside the most vulnerable place in your mind, your dreams. And yeah, my findings, and here's my conclusion. My project demonstrates that representation shapes the emotional experience, not just perception. It does everything. Controlling images become internalized as self-regulation that produces ongoing psychological pressure and impact, such as mental health and just everything bad you can think about. By using horror, I wanted this film to externalize these pressures, to really make people think and see and understand and create a space for resistance and a new way of seeing things for not only Black women, but for everybody. At this core, this project argues that representation is not only seen, It is lived and felt. I would like to thank my committee, the program, my cast and crew, and especially Scribe Video Center for their support and funding through their grant. And now I will leave you with a short clip from In Too Deep. Thank you.
It doesn't matter what I do. If I fail, succeed, tear, and change myself, it will never be enough. But that's what you wanted, right? You can't survive without me. You need me. You need